Hello, everyone. John Melby with Become Demand Driven. Thanks for joining me again today. We are here in the Big Idea Lounge in recording an episode of the Supply Chain Thought Leader's Guide to the Universe. Most of my efforts in this world are around helping to calm the chaos of supply chain and understanding that we do have a lot of chaos in our supply chain. Some of it is thrust upon us, and some of it is self-inflicted. Now, before we get started, I want to remind you, please, if you enjoy this episode, subscribe, like, and share this video. Now, today's topic circles around the concept of our customer requirement date, our production start date, and our raw material ordering. And we want to talk through kind of how this works, and I will use a restaurant analogy to share this. But let me start by saying that the customer due date, right? The customer tells us when they would like to have a product. So the customer defines the due date. We then, from that due date, we derive both a production start schedule and the raw material due date. And those two pieces are connected directly to the customer due date, and of course, a few other things like our resources and how much capacity we have and things like that. But it's basically all directly connected to that customer requirement date. So let's think about this from a restaurant analogy. And this one, I'm going to talk about making reservations. And I'm sure we've all done this. Sometimes we're making reservations at a restaurant for just one or two people. Maybe it's a family. Maybe it's a group of friends. So there might be four or five people, but you're making reservations at a restaurant. And maybe you make those reservations for 6 p.m. on a Tuesday night. And the underlying assumption, if we stick with our production planning analogy, the underlying assumption, what we hope will happen every time, is that everyone will walk into the restaurant at exactly 6 o'clock or maybe 1 minute before. We will all arrive at exactly the same time, walk through the door. The restaurant will say, "Your table is ready. Please follow me." And we sit down, and boom, without any interruption, we will have arrived at the restaurant all together and we will sit immediately. Now, if this has ever happened to you, I assure you it is accidental. There is not a way to plan for that to happen. Somebody's going to arrive early, somebody's going to arrive late. If you all do get there on time, the table won't be ready. There's just so many things that could go wrong in that analogy. But that's reality. So I started thinking about this and I said, well, our production start date is driven by the uh, customer requirement date. And our raw material ordering, the due date of the raw material, is also driven by the customer requirement date. And so in reality, my requirement due date of the raw materials and my production start date could be defined as that reservation time. So 6 p.m. reservation time and everything will just happen perfectly is the same as my requirement for my raw materials. They need to be here on Wednesday because on Wednesday I plan to start production. So without any other connection, my raw material due date coming in for my customer requirement date, it's all attached because the raw material requirement due date is the exact same period of time as the production schedule start. And so we have chaos in there because we know that's not going to happen exactly like that. It can't in the world we live in today. There's too many chances and sources of disruption. So we have to do something. And what we end up doing is creating chaos because our due date is set and our start date for production requirement is set and our customer due date is set. those things are set. So we have to manually intervene and try and make things happen that we know aren't going to happen without intervention. So this is where our planning world goes kind of crazy because we know in that restaurant analogy that that's not ever going to happen intentionally. It may accidentally happen once in a while, but intentionally it can't happen. Additionally, or uh, as the same scenario, we will never have the raw materials all show up at exactly this moment, which is our production schedule time. So we have to manipulate and massage the numbers and change the dates and expedite and call the suppliers. We have to do all kinds of things to try and get as close as possible without missing that date. And when we miss the date, then there's more chaos because we have schedule changes and now something else has to move into the schedule and the chaos gets out of control. In the demand-driven world, we disconnect those things. We don't have the requirement due date for the raw materials exactly the same as the production schedule time. We disconnect, we decouple. Just like in a restaurant, if we stick with the restaurant analogy, just like in a restaurant, they don't wait for you to get there and order before they run out somewhere and buy the bread or the meat or the vegetables. They have them. They have them because they know they need the capacity to produce whatever you order in a reasonable amount of time. So that's how we think about our production. Not for every single thing, but for most items, we need to have a reasonable quantity on hand to be able to um, react to that customer due date because there is not enough time for us to take the order from the customer and then go start asking for our raw materials. It just can't work in the world we live in today. It doesn't mean we have to have everything in high quantities, but based on what we expect our capability to have to be, we have inventory to be able to start our production when we need to. And that's a totally different scramble from the normal scramble that we have by trying to force precision to work and align all of the stars to be in their places exactly when we need them to be, even though we know that the due date from the customer or the quantity is going to change. But even in the scenario where it doesn't change, the disruption that we face daily is still something that we have to manage in a different and better way than we're doing today. I hope this analogy made sense to you. And if you have any questions, please reach out to me, John at becomedemanddriven.com. Follow, like, and share this video. Let's drive some discussion around resolving the reason why we have chaos instead of trying to figure out how to better manage the chaos, which is frankly driving those people in supply chain, driving them crazy. Let's stop managing chaos and start thinking through what is the source of the problem instead of trying to force that unattainable situation to happen. Thanks for listening, everybody. Hope you enjoyed the video. Please reach out with questions and like, subscribe, and follow.